Well, first, thanks everybody for attending. I'm sure we'll have some more that join us here in a few minutes. It's nice to have this many people out on late Thursday afternoon. Uh, a couple of ground rules before we get started. If you have any questions, put them in chat. I will keep up with them as best I can. And feel free to email me at vanslyke@lawtech.edu if you have any other questions that occur to you afterwards. We're really excited to have Mike Kasaba and Russell Lakey with us today. So, Mr. Kasaba is CEO of ThoughtSpace AI. He's a serial entrepreneur, I guess. He's done a number of startups. Prior to ThoughtSpace, he was focused on the green energy sector, including a really interesting company called Artisan Vehicles that became a major supplier of zero emissions battery powered vehicles to the mining industry. And it seems like zero emissions is a really good idea in mines. So that's a really interesting company that he built. Before that, he founded Quiet Energy, which was a pioneering electric utility company that supplied sustainable energy alternatives such as solar, wind, and biomass to large industrial companies. As part of those efforts, he built one of the largest solar arrays in California. He started out at Anderson Consulting, which is now known as Accenture, and he's had quite a long career in technology and in startups. He has a bachelor's degree from Illinois State University with a double major in management information systems, yay, and organizational management. Russell Lakey is vice president of operations at No Systems. They're the creators of ThoughtSpace. Prior to that, he served as a consultant for various firms and as CEO of QuickPick, which provides mobile app for on-demand photographers, kind of almost like an Uber for professional photographers. He's an attorney with a JD from Vanderbilt University Law School, and he also holds a BA in economics from Vanderbilt. So they're going to talk to us about kind of the startup world, what it's like, especially in a turbulent environment like AI. And they're going to talk a little bit about their product, ThoughtSpace. And I'm happy to say I'm an early adopter of ThoughtSpace. So, Russell, you want to go ahead and take the helm?
Okay, yeah. First of all, thanks everybody for joining this meeting. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hear us talk about ThoughtSpace, our company in the generative AI space. And once again, thanks, Craig, for setting this up. To start, I'll just give you like a little bit of background about ThoughtSpace. ThoughtSpace is just one of a suite of tools of our No Systems Corp company. And what ThoughtSpace is, I like to describe it as an interactive search engine for top creators, experts, influencers to be able to pose any question anytime and get an instant answer from their material. Because right now we see the issue is these top creators and experts, they have their information spread across different platforms and different information silos. And it's how do you get to this information in a nice, quick, convenient way? And so that's where ThoughtSpace comes in. I'll do like a quick demonstration. I'll take you to the portal and show you how it works. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know if you could see it. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, there you go. We're good.
Okay, so here's our we call the ThoughtSpace portal. So our tagline is get answers from experts. And so as you can see, I'm logged in as myself. I have a history of questions I've asked over here. And here are some sample questions that you could click on and see how creators would answer. But I guess since we're in information systems class, I'll do a couple questions regarding information systems. So I'll ask, how do relational databases work? So I pose this question to the ThoughtSpace system. And what our system does, it looks through all the ThoughtSpaces we have in our system, and it pulls up the ones that could best answer your question. And so here you can see we have Craig's class, Information Systems for Business podcast, his textbook, as well as other experts who've chimed in on this question and can answer it. So for me, I like the sound of Craig's soothing voice. So let's go to the podcast. And so you click on the ThoughtSpace, and our system will pose a question to the AI of Craig's business podcast. And as you can see, it provides an answer. It's like typing out. And then next, what our system does, it goes to the exact spot of the materials where this expert has talked about this or discussed this topic. So here I can click on listen.
order to do your
I don't
job.
know if you're able
Since
to
you're going to
listen,
have to use
but I can
information
hear
stored in
Craig
databases, it
discussing
makes
this
sense to
topic.
have some understanding of what's going on behind the scenes with
And
these databases.
next, you can go to the next segment and you can go
Relational
to the
databases
other
offer
places
a
where
better
Craig has
approach.
discussed the topic.
Relational databases store data in the form.
And then if I want to go deeper, I can continue the conversation with this expert. So one quick way is just tell me more. And it provides more information about how relational databases work. And once again, you could go in and listen. And so that's just one perspective. But with ThoughtSpace, you could get various perspectives from different experts on this. So we have this expert, Eli, the computer guy. So I can just click on his ThoughtSpace and I can pose the same question I just posed to Craig. And here you get his point of view and perspective on how relational databases work. And just like Craig, after the answers finishes, I'll be able to go into his material and experience where he discussed this topic. And see here, he's talking about relational databases. I can go to the next segment and it takes you right to the spot where he discusses that material. So that is the ThoughtSpace system. I'll stop sharing now. And we've been at it for 2 years. And this is just one of a suite of tools. And it's just the first step. We're still making tweaks. And hopefully you guys can check it out. We're in beta right now. We launched 3 weeks ago. And so I guess we can open up to any questions. Or I guess we could hand it off to Mike and give a little bit more background about the company, the founding, his vision, or how we want to go from here.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Russell, for the demo. And I think maybe towards the end, we've got a question and answer session. Happy to take your questions about ThoughtSpace or about really anything that's going on in AI right now. One thing Craig wanted me to touch on is what inspired the idea of ThoughtSpace and this kind of interaction. And Craig mentioned a little about my background. Basically, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 9 years old. I had a paper route and I got some money in my hand from that. And I just fell in love with the idea of having my own business since a very young age. I did get a degree and I did work for a large professional consulting company to get my feet on the ground with business. And then in '95, I left Anderson Consulting, now called Accenture, and I started an internet company. What I noticed then is what the internet was doing to disrupt pretty much every industry. I noticed this again around 2000 with the energy industry, with what was going on with clean energy, this disruption occurring. And so I got into clean energy and eventually I got into clean vehicles about the same time, as a lot of the electric vehicle startups were coming along, and found this niche in making electric vehicles in mining. We became known as the Tesla of mining, and I was able to sell that company on a large transaction to the largest maker of mining vehicles. After I sold that company, I started to look around to say, what is the next disruption that's going to occur? And clearly that's AI. I mean, hands down, it is AI for sure. It's very reminiscent of 1995 when the internet started up. Everything that's happening now, it's a real deja vu for me. And so looking at this tear in the fabric of business that's occurring, I started to look around to say, okay, so where is the disruption that I can do something about? And I got absolutely fascinated with the idea of how AI affects communications. And if you do a quick kind of run through of the history of communications, how has communications occurred throughout human history? Well, first, someone would stand on a box in the town square and yell. And that was an effective means of communication. Then print came along. That was an exponential leap. Books, newspapers. You look at radio, what that did to communications, another exponential leap. Television, the internet, and then social media. And so, what is the next logical leap, exponential increase in the power of being able to communicate? And it's this idea of what if you can actually digitally clone yourself and have one-on-one conversations with millions of people? That's never been done before in history. It's not been technologically possible to do. But as you can see from what we've got working in ThoughtSpace and what you can see when you go to ChatGPT, it is possible now. An individual can have conversations with individual one-on-one conversations with millions of people. And over the last couple of years, we have submitted patent applications. We've gotten some really interesting patents issued to us to help us kind of fence off a little bit of this space that's going on out here. And we're very, very excited about this. And as you can probably, if you take a minute, you look around at the notion of digital cloning, the notion of having an AI representative of yourself, it's on fire. It's exploding. I would say one of the biggest challenges that we have faced during the construction of this product and continue to face is I have never seen anything move as fast as AI is moving right now. I've never seen it in my career. So it's a little bit like trying to build a house in the middle of a hurricane. It's like the ground is shifting under our feet day to day. And that's a challenge. That's a big challenge because what are we defining? What we defined the product to be a couple of years ago versus what it is today and what it will be once it's viable and organically growing is going to change rapidly. And I'd say that's our number one challenge going forward. As far as, yeah, please, Greg, go ahead.
You mentioned that AI is changing the nature of communication. So what other aspects of society and business do you think that AI is going to start reshaping?
Well, again, it's, as I mentioned, it's like a deja vu to 1995. So I would ask you the question, what aspects of society has the internet changed? I mean, everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and think of this as another tool that's maybe 10 times as powerful as that. But it is a tool, just to make sure that everybody understands this. We've been at this long enough to get a sense of the essence of what AI is. And that's what it is. It's a tool. It's a powerful, unbelievably powerful tool. And it will affect every aspect of our lives. But this has happened many times in history. And, you know, some people, every time there's this major technological shift, you get people scared. And you can look at this and study this throughout history. Like if you go back to the time when electricity came around, this was an invisible force with huge power. And so fear drove things like the creation of the story Frankenstein. But what ended up happening was it was an extremely powerful tool that changed everybody's life, as did the automobile, as did so many, as the computer, as did the internet, as will AI.
So I want to go off script a little bit, throw you maybe a curveball. Um, so, what should students do about it? I mean, anytime you have these kinds of disruptions, there are winners and losers. Even if society keeps getting better and better and better, the buggy whip maker lost their job, and so it affects people in different ways. So, if you were a college student right now, what would you be doing to make sure that you're one of the winners and not one of the losers?
Well, think about a nice, simple example. If your job is digging ditches and the backhoe comes along, it's a good idea to learn how to drive a backhoe. And so that's what I would say is now is your moment to get on top of this horse, not underneath it. And you're all positioned really, really well for this. You're in school. This is your time. And so research it, understand it, try to figure out how it will affect every industry that you have interest in, and be able to articulate that change. This is what I recommend to you most, because I'm telling you, the people you're going to interview with don't know yet what AI means to them. And if you can come into an interview and tell them what it means to them, they're going to breathe a sigh of relief and they're going to hire you, because they need the people that understand what this means.
Russell, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I definitely say embrace it, try it out, especially for students thinking about when I was in law school. It's like, how would I have used a system like ChatGPT like all the time? I use it all the time in my daily workflow. And it's not about how it's going to replace me. It's like, how can I use it to make myself more productive? And thinking about students with like ThoughtSpace AI, it's like how I would have used it when I was in law school. I would have put all my notes in there so I can organize my thoughts, ask it questions, quiz myself. And it's just every time I look at new AI tools that are coming out every day, I just look at them as like, okay, how can I use this to make my job more efficient or make myself more efficient or get some joy? But it's like, never just shun anything. Like, test it out, see what strengths and weaknesses each one has and how you can benefit from it. And it's like knowledge and exposure and using everything that comes along. I really believe in, just so you can get a taste and just see how you can use it and benefit for yourself.
It seems like you've got to kind of live it to understand what it can do.
Yeah, definitely. It's so fast. Like, I wasn't in the AI space at all until like Mike brought me along. And just like he said, how fast it's changing. Like, I think today we're waiting for Meta to release something about their creating AI chatbots for creators. And it's like everyone's coming into the space and everyone is going to be using AI for something. Like, digital clones are the future. It's like a way for you to be able to communicate, be more efficient. Say, you can put this on your Gmail. So it's like when you're away from your Gmail, someone sends a message, it can answer questions, like rudimentary questions, instead of having your Gmail pile up. Or if you leave your digital self in like the metaverse and people are in there, they can ask questions to get information from you. It's a way to help make yourself more productive and efficient while you do uh, more meaningful things, whether it's giving you time to spend more time with your family because you're not interacting, answering the same questions, the same spam junk emails. It's AI is going to be here to help make yourself more efficient and be an extension of yourself to do the tasks you don't need, be more efficient at the tasks you have to do, while also freeing up a lot of time to do things outside of like work and personal and things like that.
That's one of the things that we've talked about is kind of you moving humans up the stack. So some of these boring, more drudgery tasks we can kind of pass off to AI. But it's an interesting thing because we can also use AI to help us with the more satisfying creative tasks. Used to be technology help with the boring stuff so we could do the fun stuff, but now AI can help us with the fun stuff too. So, um, if you don't mind, I want to change gears just a little bit. You've both been in the startup world in different ways for some time. You're both really smart guys. You've got degrees from good schools, you've worked for good companies. You could have gone in a lot of different directions. So I know, Mike, you mentioned that you were an entrepreneur at 9, but still you went to work for Accenture first, right? So what kind of brought you into the startup entrepreneurship world?
Um, my mom would probably be the best one to figure out what parts of my character got me here. But uh, definitely, I have um, a vein of independence in me. Um, and I remember when my mining vehicle company got purchased, I came along with the deal to transition for a couple years. And I told my boss, first boss I had in a long time, I said, listen, I'm pretty good at running this company, but I really don't know if I'm a very good employee, but I'll do my best. So I think there's certain people, and I think if we all kind of check in with ourselves, if you have it in you, in your soul, that need for independence, where you just got to do it on your own. You got to do it your way. I have it for sure. Um, and sometimes I think you just can't resist it and you got to go for it. Now, what does it mean to go for it? There's a tremendous amount of learning that comes with it. I've been through this enough to see uh, a lot of repetition. And part of it is, the early days, the honeymoon of this is so exciting, followed closely by the reality of, oh crap, I'm going to run out of money. And we better get this thing built. And then the plateau of it's built, but nobody cares. Okay. And then the pushing through that into what do we got to do to get people to care about this? How do we promote it? How do we alter it? And I think what I would sum up to say is being an entrepreneur doesn't make you who you are, but it reveals who you are.
Yeah.
Because it will tear you down to your core and expose what you're all about. And it will also do that to the people that you take with you on the journey. Leadership is key. When all you have is the abyss, as the leader, you have to be the one saying, follow me. I know what we're doing. And you have to do it with confidence. But I have to say, it's unbelievably fulfilling and rewarding. Certainly, it's nice if you succeed and you make money, but it's also extremely rewarding when you create something that didn't exist before. And you did it with a team.
Yeah.
And I can just tell you that some of my closest relationships are the people that I've been through this with. Yeah, it's a bond that's like no other. Yeah.
Yeah. So Russell, what about you?
Yeah, I would say definitely listen to Mike. He's the experienced entrepreneur with like great successes. Mine was I was an attorney, hated being an attorney, and me and my friend just came up with an idea, quit our jobs, and just tried to do our first startup, which was it was essentially supposed to be LinkedIn for high school athletes. You upload your academic athletic resume, you send it out to colleges, try to get discovered. It got like traction, but it didn't go to anything great. And then found another friend with Quick Pick, it was supposed to be Uber for photographers. Another startup, which, like Mike said, you're in the abyss. We're in the trough of despair. It's like you're not getting like the hits and the traction you want. And then eventually we shut that one down. And so from there, I just started really just advising and consulting like startups and also doing legal contract work. And then eventually just linked up with Mike, and that's how I got to this journey now. But yeah, entrepreneur, I just had two stints, and both of them I wouldn't even call them mild successes, but it was like a fun journey. It's like I had like two friends I went on it with, funding it ourselves, putting the time and effort. But yeah, it's a very tough journey.
Well, and that's something I think sometimes students don't think about. They think either you're an entrepreneur or you go to work for some big company, but you can go to work for startups, for entrepreneurs. So maybe if you're not, that's not quite for you, or you want to, kind of get used to that world, you can go to work for a company that's in that phase of their development. But it's tough to create things. It just is. You've got to have some guts to be willing to put your baby that you've created out in the world and see what happens with it. And I guess it's not for everybody, but it's an interesting journey, and it's something that, Mike, you said, if I can interpret it, it's this chance to make a mark on the world with this thing that you created. So, who would you say shouldn't take that path?
If you're risk adverse, um, if safety is your number one, don't do this. It's too hard, and there's too many moments where if you don't achieve whatever the thing is in that moment, you're gonna, you know, collapse. There's too many moments like that. If all you can think about is you're unsafe. If you're thinking about that, uh, you're not gonna make it, you know. Um, So a couple other things, a lot of words of wisdom, and we can do follow-ups or whatever. You guys can ask your question. But one thing I want to say is, I have some successes, but I have some failures too. And there were some startups along the way there that just didn't even get off of first base. That it just wasn't going to go anywhere. So I've been where Russell's talking about too, but I recognize in people excellence. That's one thing I've learned for sure. And Russell's got what it takes to take this journey for sure. Um, the other thing I will tell you is this is super important. Whatever you're thinking of creating, what you're actually imagining is your first iteration of a prototype, not the finished product. Just please accept that fact. And in order to get from the very first prototype that kind of half works to a marketable product that's actually going to be viable in the marketplace is 90% of the work. So what you think is 90% of the work is actually 10% of the work. And the 90% comes after that. Please accept that. Okay. It's important.
So you mentioned failures. So we have a question from the audience. What keeps you going as an entrepreneur when you have those failures? What makes you willing to try it again?
Well, Russell, you want to take that one? I'll follow up.
Uh, for me, like it's the failure, but it's sort of like the journey, and it's like the curiosity, and just like I have to try. It's like if something like interests me and I want to just start something and pursue it, it's like I just have to do it. And it's like the opposite is like you didn't try, and it's like in the back of your mind is nagging at you. It's like, well, you could have went for it, but you didn't. So for me, it's just something inside of me. If something like sparks my interest and like I just want to go for it, it's like I just have to do it. And if I fail, I fail, and then I just wait for the next thing to see like what interests me and intrigues me. Like even after I fail, I keep myself busy by like offering my services, working for people, just different like companies and startups, just because I have like a curiosity. I just want to know and like learn and be part of something. And so even after the failure, I'm still moving forward because I would reach out to other like startups and companies and say, hey, I saw what you did. Is there any way I could be helpful and offer my services just to get in there and not only just like sharpen my skills and to help, but also maybe something sparks my next idea and interest and say, okay, that was interesting. I'm going to go off and try to do that. So it's more so for me, it's not failure. It's just like always keep moving forward. and find something that interests you and always just expose yourself to different things. So you never know where inspiration might spark or find something that you're interested in that you didn't even like were never even exposed to before.
I will just throw in there quick. One of my mentors said to me in a very, very difficult moment, he said, Mike, adversity introduces a man to himself. It's in that moment that you get to see the real you. So what are you going to do? And failure is one of those moments. Okay, now what? And you just get this in you where you're never going to stop, ever. Maybe if they put you in a straitjacket in a padded room, maybe that slow you down a little. But short of that, you're going to keep going.
Great. So we have kind of more mechanical question about being an entrepreneur. So I know there's a lot of disagreement about how extensive a business plan should be. So if you want to start something up, especially in the technology space, what do you need to have in a business plan? How often do you go back and revisit and adjust the plan? Plans are just plans; they're not reality. And so, how do you know when you need to go back and kind of tweak things a little bit?
Um, okay, there's two let's say answers I'll give you on this. The first is get something built with your bare hands if you have to. Like, what can you and your couple of partners or whatever, however you're going to do it, actually make exist? Okay, that speaks volumes. So my advice is build. Just do it. Worry about the paperwork later. Now, for most people, they don't have a lot of money. So you got to keep that in mind, is what can you build on your own as some sort of demonstration of capability, right? Then build the business plan on that with something to show. That's way more important than a little bit of paper that you've got, okay? That's one answer. The other answer is, who are you giving the paper to? And is that an angel that's going to support you because they believe in you? Okay, then do it with paper with that person together. Create a collaborative vision of something that they're going to fund. Okay, so either of those ways is successful. But if you just put some paper together and spread it around the world and hope for the best, nothing's going to happen.
So how tough is it to get funding, especially when there are just I don't know, hundreds of AI startups popping up left and right? So what does that look like?
Well, let me answer it generally, and then I'll answer it specifically for us. Generally, money is a nightmare to get, a nightmare. And it becomes your full-time job if that's what you need to do. So if somebody else is going to actually have to build the company, because whoever's the one that's picked, the short straw to go get the money, that's all they're going to be able to do day and night. Okay, it's a full-time, difficult job to do. How you make that job easier is by having something.
Mm-hmm.
If you have anything at all, proof of concept, it gets you farther down that road faster. If you have a fully viable product and it's in a hot space, you're well down that road. If you're making $1, even if it's not profitable, you're almost there, right? And if you're profitable, you write your own ticket. It's over. And, for us, we're fortunate in that we're not I've had some prior successes, so I'm funding this. So I'm the angel and the guy running it. So our situation is a little bit different. But the hundreds of startups in the space, thousands probably, and the hurricane of activity does make it very, very difficult. So what we're striving for and stretching for right now is that viable market product that's making a buck. We're not going to get to profitability without outside help, but we want to start making a little bit of money just to show that the whole model is viable.
Great. So if we could change direction a little bit, we've got a couple of technical questions. So this one's from Eric, and Eric, if you need to clarify this for me. So with the internet, coding was pretty easy. You know, you could start out just doing some HTML and create a company. You know, it's a whole different ballgame with AI. I mean, I'm glad I'm not young because I'm not sure I have the brain to figure all that out. So is that really true? Is it just that much more complicated? And what kind of barriers does that represent for a startup in the space? And Eric, did I get that right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, I'm just reflecting back and kind of like the start of the internet, you could code with easy tags and format your pages, and it was relatively simple. It's gotten a lot more complex now, but I'm wondering, but I still feel like you could go and create a web page pretty easily, and it's going to be displayable. AI seems to me marketably different. And so, but maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. Maybe it's not as complex. Maybe there's starter helper kind of application. So
Well,
what advice could you give to that in that space?
and maybe if you could touch on the nature of your team and your company, kind of how you put your team together, because I think that
Mhm.
that's going to be a related piece to the question.
Yeah. I, cut my entrepreneurial teeth at the beginning of the internet boom, 95. Of course, HTML was pretty straightforward. I was coding that myself, back then. Back then, you had no online environment. Everything was new online. Everything. There was no, the students that are on this call don't understand what that was like. I mean, you'd have to get like a FedEx of CDs, right, to load some software. Like people don't understand like how different it was. So it was a little bit like building a log cabin with, a sharp rock kind of feeling back then. My sense of it now, and we have, just to touch on how we've built the team, we started with young master's students just graduated that had significant AI in their experience in school. And so the architecture of how you get models, AI models up and running in a test environment came with them. Also, we needed significant experience and capabilities in the cloud environment. And so we have that when we're talking about server architecture, system architecture, cloud architecture. That's all a very important component. We also have deep experience on the team in database creation, different types of databases, relational, vector, et cetera. And most of the system is built, the connecting tissue of the system is Python based. And so there's significant experience with Python code. And then front end. Front end is totally different these days than it used to be. It's much heavier than it used to be in the old days. And so we use a React.js environment on the front end to create a richer experience there. And we've got resources for that. In terms of how we organized and structured the team, we, my experience has been is keep the core as small and tight as you possibly can and surround that core with good consulting expertise and mastery of subjects in different directions on a part-time consulting basis. And that's how we've structured the team. We've got a handful, six, core people to the team, but we've surrounded them with experts, and we've I think been very successful at that. One thing that I got to say about Russell is this guy is unbelievable at finding the right kind of talent for us and bringing him into the mix. And my approach is give them a shot and see if they can do anything. And if they can do stuff, keep giving them more stuff to do. But if they can't, cut them. And through that, you can imagine how that's kind of refined and polished this, machine for us to be highly productive and not that terribly expensive to operate.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of agility.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
pivot.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of great talent. Like we've had consultants all over the world. Like we have consultants in Canada, some in Pakistan, Colombia, Portugal. So it's like the group of talent that we're able to pull from. And with the AI space moving so fast, we have expert consultants in just like very specific tasks. So maybe just prompt engineering. We'll have to have one-on-one meetings with them every week just to tell us like what is recently happening, what is the latest and greatest in prompt engineering. Another one is on like fine-tuning large language models. Like how are some new tools and toolkits that we can use to better fine-tune models? So there's so many different experts that we need for each little individual part. And it just shows like one, how fast moving it is, because week to week, something new's come out and we may have to like pivot and change like our whole mindset. And also how broad it is. Like you can search around the world and maybe the top expert is in a whole different part of the world than you are, that you need to get on the phone with or do a Google Meet to talk to about how like his processing, how his workflow works, so we can understand, so we're not getting left behind. And so, yeah, that's just about finding like the right resources and experts who can really help keep you honestly just like float, because it changes so fast and so many big players. It's tough to like keep up with the ever-changing landscape.
Right. And all right, great. That's really interesting how you've built that. So what, with another business related question. So what's your go-to-market strategy? So you've launched recently in beta. So how are you going to kind of roll out ThoughtSpace to the larger world?
Yeah, in this crazy hurricane of a marketplace, what feels right in this is soft launching, followed by very, very careful analysis of what is taking hold and what is not. And then focusing in on those things that are taking hold, make them stronger and expand them. And we're going to just keep doing that with soft launching of new features. With even, we've created a pretty robust feature engine here behind what Russell demonstrated for you. And we're seeing that even parts of it could be used for different purposes. Yeah. For instance, you talk about knowledge management. You just want to dump all these research papers, into a space and then start asking questions. Get your Cliff Notes instantly generated for you, right? Things like this. So we're just going to keep kind of pushing and pushing and pushing. Anytime I hear from someone, I would pay for that, I'm paying close attention. I'm paying close attention, right?
I'm laughing because I've said that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I heard it, by the way.
Yeah. So I would definitely pay for that. So
yeah.
Great. But it sounds like your real strategy is to listen to the market.
Yes.
Yeah. Let the market tell you. And I think that's a danger with some startups. They get so enamored with the product it's their creation, and you don't want to corrupt it in any way by making it something else, even if that's the way the market is pushing you.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it kind of back to the being an entrepreneur, startup. It reveals who you are, and are you the kind of person who can take a moment and look at it and say, even though this goes against everything that I have tried to do, I'm going to let my ego go, and I'm going to do the right thing in this moment. Right? That's a big, that's a maturity thing that's really, really neat, especially in something moving this fast.
right.
Yeah, I would
Mining
definitely say,
vehicles moved a little
yeah.
slower, so
Yeah, I was gonna say if they could see like what our product was when we first started compared to what it is now, like it's light and day. I think that's one thing like Mike's great at is like having a vision, but he's willing to really pivot really quickly. And I felt like that was one thing I really struggled with for my first startup, because it's like your baby. And it's like you don't want to do anything, and you probably should like change direction, but it's like you're holding on to this like initial vision. But it's like if it's telling you like it's not working, like you just need to shift and figure out what is. And it's like that was one thing I really struggled with. It's like this is my vision. It's like no, I'm gonna be bullheaded. I'm gonna make it through. But if you get the sense that it's not working and the market's saying it's not working, like be willing to pivot and shift off of what you've already started doing.
Yeah, it's
well,
hard to do.
and look at people that are far more successful than we are, like Elon Musk. Uh, he has a principle at SpaceX and Tesla of like a first principle approach, where the minute you realize you are headed in the wrong direction, you throw it away. You throw it away, and you get on the right path. I mean, Tesla, the Model 3, and this, some of you may have read this back in the news when the Model 3 was launching. The production line was a disaster. And so he fired the guy that was in charge of setting up the production line. He shut it down. He put up tents in the parking lot and built the cars there, and he got it done. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing.
It is
Really,
amazing.
truly. And he pulled it off. Yeah.
So, great. So I want to kind of slide into some more student related questions. So I have one really interesting question. I want to, very curious to hear your answer. What were some of your biggest regrets in your education or your career? Instead of not, other than not coming to Louisiana Tech, but other than that, put that aside.
No, you sold my thunder. That's the only one I could think of. Russell, you want
Let me see. Well, I joke about regretting going to law school. Actually, I also joke about practicing. Going to law school, I learned a lot of great skills. I did not like being a lawyer. So that's probably the one regret, just being a lawyer, maybe. Other than that, I don't really have any regrets. Everything's just like an experience. It's like a winding journey. And I've worked on a lot of cool different projects, met a lot of like amazing people. And so there's like really no regrets. Everything is just a learning experience. And so that's how I look at it. And if I could say one thing, it's just maybe the second law firm I worked for, I was like, there was no point doing that. The first one was fine. The second one, it was like HOA real estate law. I was like, this is not for me. So definitely that was probably the one.
Oh, that gave me a shudder just hearing HOA.
Well, it's funny
Oh
because
yeah, no.
When I first met Russell, I'm like, hey, why don't you just be, a lawyer for us? And he's like, no, not doing it.
No, I've done that.
Yeah.
So, but I think Russell makes a really good point. It's not so much a regret if you learn something from it. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important takeaway. And so I'm sorry, Mike, you were going to say
no.
something, I think.
Well, I had some time here while Russell was talking to think about this, and what came to mind was my father. He always talked about that he regretted this and he regretted that and he regretted the other thing. And I remember it getting instilled in me really young, do not have regrets. And that's probably one of the things that's driven me to act on my passions is I never, ever wanted to regret not doing something.
Mhm.
And even in the tough moments when practically it makes sense to shut something down, I do ask myself, will you regret it if you shut it down? And if the answer is yes, I don't shut it down. you know?
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I don't really have many regrets in my life either.
that's great.
You know, so
Great. And so, how do you recommend students start learning about AI? Are there courses or certifications, or should they just dive in? What should they do?
what is the makeup of the group? Is it mostly like computer science? Is it what's
It,
the profile?
well, it's kind of there. There's been a lot of interest in this, so I'm not quite sure, but I would say it's mostly kind of information system students like the MIS program you went through, less
Mhm.
rather than the really technical computer science. Although there may be some people like that in here too.
Um, well, one is I strongly recommend that you get into the Discord discussions, you get into the Reddit discussions, the other boards, get on GitHub, join groups in Slack, just get in there and mix it up. Uh, I will tell you that any course you take today is as stale as it gets because yesterday is stale in this field right now. You got to be in the mix right now on something that's getting built if you want to understand what's going on. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, I see Hassan is here. Hassan is our cloud architect. He is the guy that keeps everything running. And I sent a message to him right before this saying, Hassan, we're going to go into this presentation. Make sure the thing is running. And so good job, Hassan. And I think, Hassan also is of your age group. And so, Hassan, if you want to say a couple of words about places that students can go now to feel like they're in the mix on what's happening.
Hello, hello. Yeah, so can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think I'm that young anymore, but thank you for that, Mike. So yeah, I guess right now all the hot stuff happens in Hugging Face. It happens in archive if you are into researching. So pretty much all over the internet, it's migrating to AI. So it's not that hard to find any resources. If you're a self-learner, you can take that route. If not, college is always a great option, right? So I guess that's my input on this.
As for the very technically literate, get into your GitHub account and start looking at open source and just see if you can get it running. And then get into the discussions, to the chats, to the blogs, whatever, and get help and get stuff running. For the less technically literate, more like business side of things, I do some searching on YouTube, because people are posting YouTube videos like minute by minute, and some of them are kind of hokey, self-promoting things, but some of them are just good, really good, solid technical people saying, "Oh, look what I built." And as more of a business person, you can start to look at these things that people are building and imagine what you could do with them.
And if you're more into more guided learning, Coursera, Udemy, whatever LinkedIn Learning is called now, those kind of resources can be relatively useful and not that expensive. But we can't change our curriculum at the college quickly enough to stay up. You just literally can't do it. So we do the best we can, but we can't give you really absolutely cutting edge things. Don't tell my boss I said that. Let's
Well,
see.
you're giving it to them right now. We're on the edge,
That's
so.
right. That's right. I've got tenure, so I'm just going through and reviewing. We have a technical kind of question. So, um, in ThoughtSpace, is it conversational where one query builds on the next query? So if kind of like I can do with Claude or ChatGPT or Bard.
Yeah, so right now we classify questions as introductory, like what can you tell me? That's kind of a throw your hands up and just see what it'll do, and it'll give you some topics that it can discuss with you. Or a primary question, which is, what specifically is the answer to this, question, or what is your opinion of this? And then there's the follow-up question, which is to tell me more kind of question, right? And so we've got models that do that segmentation, and then the big large language model will take that and it'll shape up an answer based on what kind of question you're looking for. We are adding an enhancement that's coming soon, where the stream gives context. Now, ThoughtSpace has a history, so if you go away, you come back, you go away, you come back, that history is still there. So we're going to take advantage of that history to build additional context. So if you say, well, how would I do that? That's a tell me more question, by the way.
Okay.
But like if you're saying something that doesn't have all the pieces of data in it all by itself, we're adding a new enhancement to the system to take in more of that history.
Okay, thanks. We have one last question before we break. So we pay a lot of attention to cybersecurity. We've got an information assurance center that's certified by the NSA. And so one of the participants had a question that's security related. So ultimately, do you think that the integration of AI into society is going to benefit or harm cybersecurity? You think security is going to be able to keep up?
Well, I'll take a shot at that, but Russell and Hassan, if you've got something to add to, please do. And what I will say is it's going to do both. It's going to help and it's going to harm. And the reason I say it that way is that it is a very powerful tool. And so the question is, whose hands is it in? Is it in the evildoer's hands or is it in the right doer's hands, right? And so you're going to have this battle on both sides of it, and it's going to be epic. That's my take on it.
Okay. Russell or Hassan, anything to add?
Yeah, I agree. Just like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It's like anything in the history of like mankind. Like you can look at email, whether it's like the printing press, like using it for disinformation and things like that. Cybersecurity and AI is going to be used to attack. So we just have to be on the lookout for it to prevent those. But it's definitely going to be used for like negative means. Like there's no way around it.
Yeah.
So
and I'm sorry, go ahead, Hassan.
So I'm sure you guys have heard before, like if it's smart, it's vulnerable, and AI is no exception for that rule. So what I see right now, mostly in danger, is the social security side of things, like with all the deep fakes and false data running around. That itself, I would consider like a threat.
To play off of that and to plug our podcast, Cyberways. So the Information Assurance Center has a podcast called Cyberways, and we had an episode a couple of months ago about generative AI and cybersecurity. So I just put a link in the chat if you want to listen to that. And then I think we're at the time to stop. I also put my email address in the chat. If you have any other questions that occur to you later on, feel free to email me. I'll reach out to the ThoughtSpace team and get their thoughts and share it back with you. But I want to have a big round of virtual applause for Mike and Russell and Hassan for joining us. You know, they're in a very, very busy startup world, and the fact that they were willing to take an hour out of their day to come talk to us is pretty amazing. So thank you, everybody. I think that gives us a wrap.
Well, I'll just
Oh,
throw
sorry.
this in. Cyberways is in ThoughtSpace, and while you were talking, Craig, I went and I asked the question, and apparently you said both, help and harm, because
Nice.
that's what. So we agree.
Great. See, that's a great
Yeah.
use case.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care, everybody. Good luck out there. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.